Here we are. I think I've got this right. So, gosh, what a great show tonight. We already have people waiting. Larry Feldman, I am so happy you're able to be here with us tonight. And thank you again for saying hi, Becky. So, I do have an incredible featured guest on tonight, and we are going to be talking about a lot of really relevant things that are happening in our industry. And Brian, I tell you right now, he is a visionary. He really understands this business inside and out. So I am major excited to have Brian, and thank you so much, Brian, for being on here with me uh, tonight and with everyone, our dealers and viewers. For those that maybe not know me as much as you know Brian, I have been providing the very best in finance and insurance training for auto dealers throughout North America, throughout USA and Canada specifically, and also really help dealers understand how to embrace this digital retailing from the time the customer touches down on that dealership website into the dealership itself, right? To working with sales associates, as well as how this whole thing, how do we work with the desk, right? To align that experience. And then obviously into that F&I department that I love so much, and how to finalize that transaction with either a hybrid sales or an F&I person or single point sales associate or that F&I manager. So again, it brings me a lot of pleasure to bring on Brian Pasch. And we're going to talk first, Brian, about you got a conference coming up, and it's all about this modern retailing. So tell us, what does that all mean first? Can you kind of explain to everyone what is up with that term? What does that mean?
Yeah, Becky, thanks so much for allowing me to be on the show and to address the dealers and the industry folks who follow you. I do see Larry. Welcome, Larry, Steve, and come on. Everyone's here. And just say hello in the comments so we can acknowledge you along the way of the show, and feel free to ask questions. So modern retailing. People started talking about digital retailing as some tools that were presented on a dealer website to allow the consumer to see the affordability of a vehicle in a more accurate way than an old-fashioned payment calculator, which was a, way rough estimate. And many people started to say, well, it's not the tool. It's really, we need to rethink the process. We need to think of the human element. We need to think of what an online sales process looks like, how we transition. And so it wasn't so much about the tech tool that was on the website. The more I thought about it, my last book was really a blueprint for modern retailing, meaning we need to rethink the needs of the customers. We need to embrace and understand the needs of the OEM. And we need to adapt our sales processes, including, as you mentioned, how F&I is handled. And more dealers are embracing a single point of contact model, and the technology to allow that to be successful is there. So modern retailing is what I'm referring to is the change management that dealers are going to need to embrace and are in the middle of embracing, so that the franchise model is healthy and continues.
Well, it's exciting because I think that also too, that I hear a lot about that it's not just the one-time sale. It's before the sale. In fact, we're talking a lot more about putting products online before, our finance products online before the customer even makes their way into a dealership. Talk a little bit about that too, if you don't mind. And then during, and then of course after. It's just not just the one-time sale.
That's right. And I think that what we're seeing is the evolution of these tools are now integrating the F&I products that would be exposed in an F&I office or inside the dealership. I look at modern retailing as a new mindset to share the information that was once kept solely inside the dealership and move that online, to allow the consumer to do as much as they want online and finish the rest in the store. The vast majority of car sales, even today, are done inside the franchise dealership, or even some people who tout online buying, really, they're sending a driver who's a notary who's signing papers on the hood of the truck. So we're not really being honest with ourselves that the consumer isn't ready. Technology isn't ready. Even some state laws aren't ready. But we are moving closer to a day where more and more of the transaction can be done online if that's the choice of the consumer.
So are you advocating that dealers have the ability, technology, or utilizing technology to be able to offer that capability to the customer? Because I know what it's like. I mean, I'm in these dealerships, right? And I'm telling you right now, some of these guys are freaking out. They're like freaking out. No way. We'll wait till the customer gets their way into the dealership and then we'll figure all this stuff out. We're going way too much on this online stuff. Let's just, give them so much information, but at the end of the day, let's bring them back in here. We're just going to do F&I like we've always done it.
Yeah, that's a good point, because there are different mindsets, and there is resistance to change in any industry. So a couple points I'd like to make out. These digital retailing tools or retailing tools that are on the market today, for many dealers, they're just lead gen tools because they are not believing in a framework that a consumer really wants to do the transaction online. So they are putting up their bank and lenders. They may or may not be showing F&I products, but their mindset is, hey, this is a better lead capture tool. This is a better way to set appointments. And I understand that mindset. The only challenge that I have to that mindset is that for the first time, the OEMs are really pressing a completely different agenda and a script on top of the franchise dealer model. They are, for the first time, suggesting they're going to provide the software end to end, and they're going to expect their franchise dealers to know how to and fully operate in an online model. And I would just say that it's not about the majority of sales being done online or transact online. It's about the experience that a dealer will gain as he's embracing these changes in new staffing models, new management models, new customer engagement models, because never before have I seen, the dealer body not even get that upset to the idea that OEMs are talking about turning franchise dealer locations for electric vehicles, into an agency model where they're a delivery center. And I'm not seeing the uprising from the dealer community when we see Ford or GM say, look, you're going to go to a national site, you're going to buy your EV vehicle, and there's no answers about which F&I products will be displayed, which banks will be displayed, what happens when a trade has hair on it. I mean, there's no answers to this, but man, it seems like somebody's telling the OEMs that it's going to be really simple with the right tech to sell cars online.
Well, you say there's a lot to be said about that, because sometimes I feel like dealers aren't speaking up, and I don't know why they're not, because this is something that's going to impact who they are and what they're all about, right? And their individual uniqueness to be who they are, right? It's driving a different behavior. And one thing before we go on, let me just say hello to Stephen Epicella. Thank you so much, Stephen.
Come on, Stephen.
Thank you.
He has such a
Thank
great
you.
product too.
Oh, he's amazing. And I tell him, I'm like, you talk about automating that experience. I mean, what's not to love about what Steven offers and brings to our dealers? That's for darn sure. And
Yeah, and Stephen, Becky, Stephen's platform really is one of the missing pieces for retention. We wanted to have a kind of real-time experience here, and this is obviously unscripted. I didn't know Stephen was going to be on, but when you think about OEM plans to maybe marginalize the value of the franchise dealer and turn them into delivery centers. And by the way, I consult in Europe, and this has already been done. So this is not like fantasy thinking. And we have to stop hiding behind the franchise laws to say that this is not going to happen here. But that's a side note. We'll get more into that later. But Stephen's platform allows dealers to create more memorable experiences with the dealer when they buy that extended warranty package. And then 6 months, 9 months, 12 months, 18 months later, the consumer really has no idea what they bought, what is covered. And the fact that his platform gives consumers the ability to check what they purchased, to see what is covered, to give the dealership more insights into value added selling and making sure that that product or products that were sold in the F&I office are supported in the service drive. I mean, it's really a missing piece into the whole post-sales experience, and to encourage consumers that the F&I products really have value.
absolutely. In fact, I met Steven about 3 years ago. And I was on this mission to help dealers automate some way to get an after sale process put in place.
Right.
And because it's pretty much, I got tired of banging my head up against the wall and we expect the same result by doing the same thing. And it just wasn't happening. And I'm like, okay, well, maybe the best way to look at this is, how about we try to automate this process to some degree, right? And make it easier to get the dealer out in front of that customer. So as I was working with that with different tech providers, lo and behold, I meet Steven Apicella, and it was like, he blows me away. Now, that was 3 years ago. Today, it's just amazing where this technology is today. It is
Yeah.
incredible.
And
Yes?
and Stevens platform won an AWA award this year at NADA. We were pleased to recognize that platform because it's unique in this space. And Becky, I see a comment from one of our watchers right now that says, "Engage or embrace now, or you'll be left behind as a franchise dealer." I want to encourage and thank that listener to say that's what it's trying to say, is that don't say I'm not going to embrace modern retailing technology, modern retailing sales process because it's such a small percentage of my total sales. I want you to embrace it because you need to build the experience. You need to refine the sales process. I think in general, the automotive industry will be moving to more of a fixed price model and a single point of contact. I think there's reasons that we need to look at why there's such high turnover in the automotive space, why retention is so poor because those salespeople are no longer around. There's a lot of pain points that are happening. And as this listener commented, this is the time to learn when the sun is shining. It's not raining. Dealers are at maximum profit, at the minimum labor force. And this is the time where they can invest in their business and learn new things.
Oh, there's no doubt about it. I think that we need to take the time now that we have the time. Volume has always been our biggest, killer when it comes to any types of processes, right?
Right.
So, once everything slows down, you realize, oh, I don't have this skill set in place. What happened to all this? What happened to all our accountability that we had in place and processes? And they certainly have taken a dive. So and that has always been really has helped to, by recognizing some of our pitfalls, if you will, or profit leaks. It's so important now. Why can't we do a better job to manage this? And even hate to use the word streamline. Everybody has used this word time and time and time again. But I
Yeah,
know, Ethan,
it's not streamlining, because streamlining implies keeping the existing process in place and maybe taking out some sandpaper and cutting down the rough edges. The word I'm using is we need to rethink automotive retail. We need to rethink the decisions that were made, the processes that were put in place, and to say, are they really optimizing the consumer experience? Are they really reducing my overhead costs? Are they really working to increase employee retention and employee satisfaction? So if we don't have the courage to rethink automotive retail, we're going to have some problems. And that's why I've been recommending a book by Adam Grant, which is called Think Again. And I think that all F&I managers, dealership managers, marketing managers should read that book and then take some of those challenges and apply them to automotive retail. It's a new framework I'm using for leadership coaching inside the dealership.
amen, brother. Let me tell you something. I know how many F&I people, even dealers for that much matter, are freaking out about that whole single point. Sales associate, no way. I kind of like my own way of doing things. Okay, for an example, I happen to love Brian Kramer. I do.
Right.
I think he's amazing. What he did, rolling up his sleeves to affect a huge change. And he did. He did. He really rolled up their sleeves, and he has digitalized the entire experience. And believe me when I tell you, it has impacted his sales and reduced the disruption on the floor, to really helping to really bridge that gap between the sales department, F&I, the time it takes to get in. And well, you're never really out of the F&I department in his store, right? Because everything's done
Right.
at the salesperson's desk. It reminds me of AutoNation back in the day. But he utilized that technology to make that change, to make that all happen. And
Right.
but yet he didn't forget about, here's the thing, he didn't forget about the F&I department.
That's right. And listen, it's super important to understand that every time there's a change, especially in an area of the business which has been somewhat specialized, any conversation that could threaten that independence or even that control, I understand. But, now working with dozens and dozens of dealers with the right tech, with the right training, PVR isn't going down. Product penetration isn't going down. It's going up. And so I've been watching very carefully, for example, the work that A to Z Sync is doing, that was built out of the Champ Automotive Group. I think the Champ showrooms are the best in the industry for creating that really powerful connection with the consumer and a single point of contact. Now, single point of contact without the right software, without the right training, is a mess. And I get that. But what if PVR doesn't go down, product penetration goes up? What if that experience with the customer, what if the retention of the employees, what if the whole labor cost equation changed to be more favorable for the dealer and the consumer? Wouldn't that demand us to rethink the decisions that we've made in the past? And that's all I'm saying out in the marketplace. Let me show you some data. Let me show you some technology. Let me show you what's coming down from the OEMs. And most dealers realize, wow, okay, I haven't taken this seriously enough. I've been thinking my business is going to, lose so much money. And I think that the truth is, Becky, if dealers don't embrace change, if they don't rethink retail, then they will be at a disadvantage, because all of the large public groups are embracing this full on, and we've never seen more roll-up activity in the past few years than any time in the industry. So change is here, and I'm glad that we're talking about it to prepare the dealers who are watching for the future.
Well, I feel like I agree. Look, I've always been very fortunate in that I've been a part of forward-thinking individuals. I've been very blessed with that whole experience from the time back in the day, even meeting, Jim Fitzpatrick, when he was the
Sure.
GM at the AutoNation store in Alpharetta, Georgia. He's going to shoot me for that, but he was. But that's where it all started, and it was a very forward-thinking. Wayne Huizinga was a visionary. He was an entrepreneur, visionary before his time. Seeing some of the things that we implemented firsthand was unheard of. And that was that menu, and presenting the menu in the middle of a showroom. Like, who does that? I mean, that's absurd. Where's the ball and chain mentality? What happens if the customer takes advantage of all the products? And meanwhile, you got to go back to the admin office, print up the deal, leave that customer alone. What happens if they talk themselves out of this stuff? Right?
Yeah, and change, isn't easy. I see one of the Facebook watchers asked a question: what data, what technologies, what's coming from the OEMs? So let's talk about digital retailing, because there was another question on what's
here.
the plan on getting more people involved in digital retail. So let me explain. There's a few classes of tools out there, and it's important to differentiate what people are trying to do. Okay, so you've seen the CDK acquisition of Roadster.
Yep.
The Reynolds acquisition of Gubagoo.
That's right.
And of course, Cox was already what I would say a multi-product integrated suite. Those three players, CDK, Reynolds, and Cox, are accelerating deep integration into DMS and CRM and their desking and e-signature tools, because I believe Tekion, which is a brand new player, has gotten the attention, the love of the investor community, the love of the OEM community, that a clean slate, brand new, never tested before, end-to-end retail solution is better than trusting CDK or Reynolds or Cox to build one. Now, that's one set of tools. Those three companies are saying, no, we have the experience, we know automotive retail, we know our dealers, and we're going to build a retailing platform so that there's less tabs that need to be open, simplified workflow. So let's put those aside. And then you have innovators like CarNow, who are saying, look, the future is real-time retailing. When people are on your website, don't think these tools are passive. Don't treat all of that shopper engagement as if they weren't in a showroom. They're in your virtual showroom. Let's reach out to them, embrace them, serve them, and help them in real time, just like we would inside the dealership. That's a completely different approach by seeing the website as the true virtual showroom. But what CarNow's vision is we're going to staff it. And then you have another group of digital retailing tools, which I would call Fuse, Auto Tech, and A to Z Sync, which say, listen, don't worry so much about the tools on the website. The key is that today, 90% of all the transactions are happening in a showroom, and we need to fix that process and problem. And the best way to do that is to provide a platform where one person can do the entire transaction, say, let's just call it in an hour, without losing PVR, without the fear mongering that goes on. And what happens when you use these single point of contact tools and get them to work efficiently? Well, you see higher gross profits, you see higher employee retention, higher satisfaction. But that's for dealers who want to embrace a massive rethinking and saying, look, I need a sustainable, low-cost model with high satisfaction, and I think single point of contact is going to do it. And then there's a whole other group of players that are out there that are WebBuy, which is built by dealers, and in a sense, proven out by dealers. And you have other tools that are doing some, most, or all, but it's hard to differentiate what their product is going to do versus another because they don't have DMS product that they own. They don't have a CRM product that they own. They don't have a electronic contracting. You see, so the big players believe deep integration with deep retail process going to work. A to Z and Fuse saying, no, those guys got it wrong. That's not the future tech stack. The future tech stack is single point. And then you have a completely modern mindset that says, look, we have to serve consumers wherever they are in real time. We're not using DR as a lead gen tool and chasing DR leads in the BDC. Let's serve the customer wherever they are at with the tools they need at the right time. So when somebody asks, what are the tools? The question is which tool set matches your culture?
Amen. And that really is what dealers need to do. They need to take a look at what these tools provide and how they interact, how they play with what and how they want to do business. And how many times does that not happen? Again, one of the reasons why, I just was very impressed with Brian, because he took the initiative to figure out what each technology would do based off of what they wanted to see happen. It wasn't as if, and what happens so much time is that we have this silver, we have this platform and that we just think is amazing, but we don't look at all the different variables as it affects what's happening in our own dealership. So I think it's important that you got to take a look at what these providers, their psychology, their concept, what their thoughts and ideas are as it pertains to what the end result is going to be.
Yeah, and Becky, there was a nice question from Adam
Yeah,
about high turnover rate, and I just want to address that because, again, Adam Grant's book, Think Again, is so important for us to read as automotive professionals because he provides a number of examples that have caused massive pain and even the loss of life because people weren't willing to rethink the behaviors, the actions that create cultures that are toxic or even harmful. And, we've been talking about employee turnover for such a long time in automotive, but we never really wanted to admit that the reason why customer retention is so bad is because the salesman who sold that person a car, who promised them that they would, touch base with them on birthdays and anniversaries, and whenever their kid needed a car, it's just, he's gone or she's gone to some other place, and we kind of laugh. I hope we connect that person with a new salesperson, but that never happens, right? So Adam asked the right question. All I can tell you is that the next book I'm going to be writing about is about the transformation to a single point of contact. I'm going to be interviewing dealers, watching their transition from a traditional sales process to single point. And I will tell you what I know from visiting Champ Honda and seeing what they do. Their sales associates go through, I think, about 3 weeks of training before they're ever on the showroom floor. Mm-hmm. And when they are on the showroom floor, they're really using a guided experience where they can't go off the rails. And their sales floor, it's kind of worked in teams. So there's basically a team sales manager. Their role is very different, though. It's not to go back and forth with a desk. It's really just making sure that the person is following this guided experience. And if there's some hair on the deal, there's always some hair on the deal, that there's some escalation. But what it ends up doing is creating a much more meaningful experience for the sales associate. They feel more empowered. They feel like have a real career. They're helping people solve their mobility problems. It's a better experience for the consumer, which means they get that positive feedback. Now, you may say, Brian, we would never train someone for 3 weeks before they were generating money for us. And then all I have to say is, we need to rethink that decision. That behavior of throwing them online. Hey, take this Toyota online courses, and then we're going to throw you in with Bob. He'll teach you how to use the CRM, and just get out there and start selling. Hey, we see the results of that mindset. And if you want to attract younger professionals, you know that the younger workforce is expecting very robust job training. They're expecting a career path. They're expecting more flexible hours. And guess what? The traditional sales process doesn't afford that. And again, all I'm saying is there's many different products and solutions. You need to find one that's more aligned with your vision for the future of retail, and you have to start to get experience working with those tools.
I get it. I believe me, I understand it. I get it. I love Susan O'Rourke with A to Z. She's freaking cool as ever. And I felt so bad. I had a live talk with Susan. Boy, did we get into the minutia. And wouldn't you know it, there was LinkedIn and me freezing.
Wow.
But she is a terrific lady, and she's a really smart gal. I was at first taken back when I first met with her, and she's kind of, well, actually, I knew the Schomp Automotive Group because Kevin Cunningham introduced me to them a few years back.
From
And
NCM?
yes, Kevin from
Yes.
NCM. Great guy, great leader.
Great moderator. Yep.
He certainly is. He's a lot of fun. And so he's like, you got to check this out, Becky. So that was about 3 years ago. And I actually had, I can't remember who I had on the F&I Today show, but, we were doing the, we had the Schomp Automotive Group on there at that time. And it was just such big news because it was like, are you kidding me? Single point sales associate? What are you trying to do? Take away our jobs? So we still have a lot of that. And I know it's all about repurposing some of the individuals.
That's right. The F&I manager should not say, oh, they're eliminating my role. I think the responsibilities change. Anybody who's a great F&I manager is such a key person within the ecosystem. And so, listen, if somebody says it's my way or the highway, of course, those people always leave when change occurs. But there are a lot of people that say, hey, I get it. Yes, it's been done this way for a while, but I see the need for change, and I'm willing to, pivot and change my thinking because I love this industry. I mean, I have met a number of people who have stayed on in these change environments, and they're super happy. They would say, look, I was a disbeliever. I didn't believe it. I didn't think our PVR, would increase. I was complete against the whole thing, but now I see it, and now we can attract different employees. And let's just, somebody asked that question. It's like, well, what's coming down with the OEMs? Why is that important? And it's all tied together because when GM announced that EVs will be sold through a national portal at MSRP, no negotiations on price, and the consumer will order that car online. There was no conversation, not a single conversation of how the trade would be handled, how F&I would be handled. When Ford did the same thing and said, hey, we're going to come out with a platform and basically that's saying, dealers, I don't care what digital retailing tool you use. I don't care what desking tool you use. I don't care what menu. It's all going away. We're going to force one tool on everyone. Now, again, I'm wondering why the dealer body isn't saying, well, for dealer groups, that sounds like a really crappy idea. But again, if we don't see that we need to streamline the workflow, the sales process, stabilize our employee experience and create a better wow experience at the local level, will be marginalized. So if we know that the box is a framework that has never produced the wow customer experience, let's move the box out. Let's still get the value from the products we sell and the profits. Let's just rethink how they're presented. And everyone, if they're really out for the dealership's best outcome. If they want to protect the franchise dealer model, we have to stop putting up walls around our fiefdoms and say modern retailing is about bringing the information that was only once inside the dealership out to where the consumers are, to allow them to complete as much as the buying process as they want online, pick up where they left off, make it easy and simple and streamlined, period. And if that means more profitability for the dealership, lower employee turnover, higher customer satisfaction, and more visibility into when sales processes break, why wouldn't we embrace it? And 3 or 4 years ago, Becky, no one had the data. Now we have the data, and the data looks fabulous, which of course we would have expected.
Well, I'm telling you right now, I still feel as if, I get it. I mean, I've been there. I've done it. I owned it. I know what it feels like changing a concept, So Stephen Napicello and I, we talk through it. It's like his automates it. But when you have to change an individual's thinking, that becomes quite a different thing. And it's all about, changing the way that we do business, which is very uncomfortable for a lot of people. It just is. And not just, F&I people, dealers too. This has been something that I talk to dealers about just meeting a customer at the salesperson's desk and maybe even doing a menu presentation there. And it's like, oh my God, why would we want to go do that, Becky? We could just bring them into the F&I office. And I said, what if I told you I just sold like 4 different products to a customer out at the salesperson's desk? What does it matter where we're engaging with the customer as long as the customer's what? We're comfortable with the buying experience.
That's right. That's right. And there's a couple questions.
Yeah, there's plenty of them.
Am I suggesting that all dealers move to a single point of contact? And I'm saying
is that one
no. I am suggesting that the future is going to look more and more like that. And let's just say a dealer has 3 or 4 stores. I would test moving one store to a single point of contact with full conviction, meaning I'd love to work with a few dealers who are watching today's show. I don't sell technology. I am just a writer and a coach for dealerships. But if some of you are about to or considering moving to a single point of contact, once your platform is chosen, I'd love to document that change with you, include you in my book. What I do believe is that we need to simplify and still give the wow experience. We need to never minimize the value of a local franchise dealer. We need to preserve the franchise dealer, the local dealer model. What we need to remove is the, gilded gardens that cause pain and inefficiencies, and just open up and say, look, if we really had to rethink retail, if we really had to cut down on costs, if we had to make it fast and efficient because of some of the moves that OEMs are doing to, minimize the role of the dealer in the process, we better get ready now.
There's no doubt about it. I mean, I get it because, just if in fact we're not doing just the basics, I'm talking about some of the basics that we should be implementing and having done in the industry. We are so far behind, it's not even funny. We're just not, so dealers, I see that dealers are more and more maybe open-minded to that conversation about, okay, let's go ahead. Let's be a lot more efficient in how we're handling this because it only makes sense. To me, it only makes sense. Let's get rid of all the disruptions. Let's do this the right way. But there's still that fear factor. It just is, Brian, that, okay, I put these policy procedures in place. I'm dependent on that F&I income, and I cannot rely on a sales associate approach to manage that menu and overcome objections at the same time. They are freaking out.
And you know what? I understand that, but the data shows otherwise. And I remember talking to Natalia Greiner. She's one of the tech developers at A to Z Sync, and she comes from an F&I background. She was an F&I director at a dealership, and she said, Brian, before we embrace this, I would have said, no way. It's impossible that sales associates could have the same, PVR. And I talked to a dealer pretty recently, and he said, Brian, my sales associates are weak people. All my money is made in the F&I office. And I'm just going to say that I understand that, because that's the model that has always been in place. Hire people, bodies, showroom. We know there's high turnover, but the golden goose is my F&I manager. Get it? I understand that model. But that's not the sustainable model with the change that's coming. And more importantly, I can show you dealer after dealer who've moved to single point of contact, where after the training is completed, PVR is up, product penetration is up, employee satisfaction is up. And here's what I'm saying. And guess what? Labor cost per retail sale is down. Now, you can say anything you want, but the data is showing that the old model is inefficient. It's not sustainable. It's not creating the customer experience. It's not creating the employee experience that we need, to protect the franchise model. Because if we stay where we are, the OEMs have already in Europe, if you do not follow, Stellantis canceled every franchise dealer contract in Europe, every single one of them. And they're going back to select dealers and saying, we would like to invite you back as a dealer. But that big showroom you built? Well, we're only going to put, 9 cars in your showroom. And so we'll pay you 20% of your overhead costs. The other overhead cost, that's up on you. And we're going to pay you a fixed commission for each car that you sell. And you're going to love it, because that's the model. And of course, there's so many other conversations around then how dealers make money. But if we don't protect the franchise dealer model by changing the culture and experience, the OEMs will do it. And if we say, well, Brian, it's never going to happen like that in Europe because of franchise laws. Here's my experience. Anything that an OEM wants a dealer to do, they pretty much get, because they have carrots and sticks. I'll give you 2 examples. When Stellantis pushed out eShop, an inferior digital retailing product initially compared to the other tools on the market, dealers complained. They just did it overnight. And then I hear dealers saying, well, hey, I got a call. I can get some more new car allocation if I put eShop on. And I'm like, well, are you going to do it? It's like, well, Brian, that's like $200,000 worth of cars. and I'm like, and yeah, we're doing it. I heard the same thing from Nissan. Hey, we want the Nissan at home, but it really is not great compared to the product I have. But Nissan offered me more allocation of cars, so I put it on my website. So are you telling me that franchise laws are going to protect change? No, it's going to really be painful for dealers who hide behind the idea that the OEMs can't control the sales process. And they're pushing it more and more because dealers don't want to change. So
Amen. That's what I hear.
I understand the OEM position, but then I work with large dealer groups that are solely focused on creating a seamless retail experience that could be the best in the country. And yet they're victims because the OEM's saying, yeah, I know you guys are great, but we want only one platform because the dealers won't do it on their own. So as an industry, I've been working to create a framework to allow dealer choice for digital retailing and still give the OEMs what they want. It's still in its infancy, but anyone who is not following what's happening in Australia and in Europe with this agency model for new car sales, and then, of course, GM's introduction of Car Bravo to get into the used car sales. And you should know that Stellantis has its own used car portal and website in Europe. So listen, if we continue to fight with each other and ignore what's happening in other industries, change will come hard. It will not be enjoyable.
So Stephen Epicella has had a comment. And he talks about dealers will lose their unique value proposition and become OEM clones if mandated digital retailing then leads to mandated F&I products, then leads to mandated services processes. Dealer choice is critically important to preserve. All dealers and vendor community voices are needed. So it's like, okay, well, I had this online event recently, and I was asking for every dealer voice, and silence is not the answer. Silence is a sign of to me, a weakness. It's like, okay, where's your voice? Let's hear your voice. Let's hear what you have to say about this. And
That's right. And I'm seeing some comments. I
yep,
see Melissa and Adam. And Adam, let me just address Adam. I
okay,
understand that there is a fear that a single point contact sales associate can't answer all the questions perfectly, as well as an F&I manager. That's why I'm saying that there's a team approach. You have to remember that in a single point of contact sales process, everything that's happening at the desk with the customer is transparent and in real time visible to the coach or team lead. That team lead is an expert at F&I and resolving issues. We're not talking about training people for 3 weeks, throw them out, to the wolves and expect them to perform. But this constant comment, and Adam, I'm just going to call you out on it because I have to. This idea that the F&I manager is the only possible person in the store to resolve a customer who doesn't want to deal. And I think that's just I'm just going to call absolute ignorance on that, because sales managers with the right training, with the right tools, are doing this right now. They're doing it right now with a supervisor like an F&I manager over the whole retail operation. But believe me, to think that anytime there's a sticky deal, that there's only one superstar in the entire dealership that can fix it, again, it just goes back to this inefficient model. It's training, it's accountability, it's technology, and supervision. It's all a different way to look at it. And,
it's a
so
lot of way of looking at it, because just in my conversations alone, there might be 1% of dealers who, and I know that you got the big dealers out there, they're doing what they need to do to go ahead and be the game changer. They are seeing CarMax. They are getting it, and they realize what they're up against. And if they want to stay relevant and continue to grab market share, they better know how the beast works. And the others, on the other hand, it just the whole idea behind it, just to bring in, and part of where I go with that is, why in the world wouldn't you want something that would reduce the disruptions, that would cut back on the CIT nightmares, that would take away tag and title freaking issues, that would make your comptroller want to send you pizza? I mean, why
well,
wouldn't you want to do that? It just blows me away.
because listen, when it's unknown, and all I have to say is, if anybody doubts, you can reach out to Fuse, you could reach out to A to Z Sync, and many others. You could talk to Gino Walsh at Cavalli Automotive Group. Go to people who've perfected this, and you say, wow. And I won't even tell you what Cavalli did, because it will blow people's minds on how they redistributed the workforce. But there are models that work. And I will say one other thing, is that the pace of change, even though it seems very slow, there is a dam that will be breaking. And I think that the two domestics here in the U.S. are going to be the dam breakers of forcing a new retail process, period. And, if we don't have voices of reason, if we don't find a middle ground, it's going to be a little painful. I see a couple questions and a repeat question. So,
Well, it
um,
is.
yeah,
Melissa,
Melissa's
she's a
asking about
go-getter.
crypto, and let me
Thank
just say
you.
that Kevin Fry and the Weiler Automotive Group, the Jeff Weiler Automotive Group in Cincinnati, was recognized in automotive news as the first dealer in the United States to accept crypto as a payment. In fact, the Jeff Weiler Automotive Group accepts right now, I think, 8 different cryptocurrencies and allow consumers to buy a car. And just like Brian Kramer was the first dealer in the United States to sell a car in the metaverse,
There you go.
we right. And so Brian Kramer is a great friend. He's going to be, he always comes to our conferences and is an amazing speaker. Kevin Fry from the Weiler organization will be a speaker at the DMSE conference. Dealers are pushing out and trying new things. And today's challenge in this conversation is, look, we need to rethink automotive retail. If you say the only way my store will work is if I have one person in the F&I department and weak salespeople, listen, you're making record profits now. I'm not telling you that today your decision is a bad decision. I'm saying that if you have multiple stores, you need to start experimenting with the tools that are absolutely going to be the future of automotive retail or modern retailing. You need to talk to dealers who are going through these transitions. The good news is companies like A to Z, Sync, and Fuse have field trainers. There's a whole cutover training process, and the dealer cutover process takes about 4 weeks. And they're holding the dealer's hands through this whole process. And then after about another 60 days, the dealer is pretty much set, and they're recording all-time high gross. So hold on, if you're saying, Brian, I can transform a dealership into a more sustainable model, a more enjoyable model for employees, more satisfying experience for the consumer, and my dealer can have more of a sustainable success that the OEMs are looking for me to deliver so they don't force change on me. All I'm saying is you need to look at it. And if you say, Brian, I want to embrace the technology, but I don't want to do single point, that's fine too. All I'm saying is you can look at Roadster, you can look at Goobagoo, you can look at Cox Digital Retailing, Car Now, you can look at WebBuy, all these tools that are helping you meet the consumer where they are to unlock the information that was once kept secret in the F&I office and move it to the customer in a relevant timing based on their sales needs and where they are in the sales funnel. All I'm saying is get the experience. If you're not doing any of it, I would say you are way behind the ball. At record profitability, I get it, record profitability, but dangerous in your decision making to think that the way you're operating and at these record profits is going to sustain.
I think a lot of these dealers, I don't know. I mean, I don't have a crystal ball on what they actually think, but they're liking it and where their profits are. But I think that they're going to be surprised once everything normalizes. Whatever normal means, it's hard to say whatever that means. What does that mean? And things are going to be changing. And again, here we are with interest rates going up, right? The rates are going up, and how does that affect pre-owned business? How does that affect the way that we're doing business as a whole, and really having a better understanding of trying to make sure that we're still continuing to maximize profits, sell pre-owned or new vehicles, but yet in this changing climate, there's a lot of factors that dealers need to look at.
Yeah, and so for as we get close to our end of the show, let me make a couple suggestions. Dealers who are considering changing their retail sales process because they see the future will require change, I want to invite them to come out to the Digital Marketing Strategies Conference, and you go to digitalmarketingstrategies.org, and we're going to make a special discount code, Becky, for your listeners only. I'm going to tell my team to make a discount code, and we're going to make it Becky 200. That's what we're going to do. Becky 200, take $200 off your ticket. This will be the only place that offer is made. And I'd like you to come out to the show. Why? You're going to see all the digital retailing companies there. You're going to see both of the companies I mentioned for single point of contact. Both Fuse and A to Z Sync will be there, okay? And I want to see you there. Now, one other thing. The day before the conference, we have this Automotive CXO Summit, and this is only for dealer groups with 10 or more stores.
Oh,
If you're a CMO, a CFO, a CIO, COO of a dealer group of 10 or more, we have a group now. This is the third time we're meeting the Automotive CXO Summit, and we are tackling some really big issues. We only have 2 seats left in the committee, and if you'd like to attend and see the dealer groups that are in attendance, you could just reach out to me, Brian at brianpasch.com. Brian at brianpasch.com, and take a look at the conference agenda and the topics and the companies that will be out there. There's a lot of really good people. And if you can't make this one in May, just know that the Modern Retailing Conference, spelled out modernretailingconference.com, is in November in Palm Beach. And that will be a much larger show with more technology companies. And we're going to be talking, Becky, about all the human resources piece, the sales process piece, the technology piece, and really expand. And I hope that you can come out to that and be involved in the educational tracks, because we need more people in the F&I industry just looking at interviewing dealers who are making change, so you can pass some of these great stories on to them as well.
I'd love to. I think you're absolutely, like I said earlier, you're moving, you're going forward, you're visionary as well, as to how you see this car business and coming together now and in the future. So I was so excited to have you come on. I'm thinking, is there a way I can bring Brian on my live talk with Becky Chernek? And I just think that we have so much in common. And
yes, and we need to help. Just listen, we love dealers. I talk to dealers every day. I coach dealer groups in single point stores. Listen, I've written 9 books to help members of this industry get better.
yes.
So I'm 100% committed to dealer education. I don't have an agenda. I don't sell technology products. I'm just here to help accelerate change, and so are you. So I want to thank you for having me on the show. And again, any of the dealers who are watching this live or on replay over the next few days, what you can do is just use my email address, Brian at brianpasch.com. You can easily shoot me a note with any questions, especially whether or not you want to attend CXO, whether you want to attend DMSC. But I'll make sure, Becky, that tonight, Dawn from our team makes Becky 200 to save people
Hey,
200
so
bucks
let's
on
do
their
it,
check.
guys. Let's make it happen. Let's really crush
on.
this. This is great. This is good stuff, Brian. Thank you very much. And we have a couple more comments before I let you go on out of here. I know he's such a busy man. Thanks for the great information and insight tonight from our Facebook. No, actually a LinkedIn provider. I don't know who that is. Normally their name shows up. And then powerful discussion, Rebecca and Brian, to illuminate where a great industry can continuously improve and truly evolve. This guy is amazing. I just absolutely adore Stephen Apicella. Leaders are required. The time is now. Silence and inaction. He's the one who got me started on that, but he's so right about it. Be perfectly honest. He goes,
thank you,
wrong.
Christine. Thank you for your encouragement. Listen, we're here to help the industry move forward and accelerate change, and at the pace in which every dealer wants to go. At record profitability, I understand there is that natural tendency to stay where you are. It's been a good 2-year run. I just want to make sure that we're adapting while the money flow is here and we have the best opportunities to learn before inventory levels normalize, that we could at least explore what the future of retailing could look like.
No, I think that if the time to do it is certainly now. And thank you again, Brian. Thank you everyone for listening in and sharing some of your ideas and thoughts. And that's what it's all about. Feedback is so critical right now. So again, thank you, and I hope to see you guys next Wednesday, right? And maybe over with Brian at his conference. And when is that again?
Yeah. So the one that's this month is May 22nd, 23rd, 24th, and then in November, I think it's November 13th, 14th, and 15th.
Okay, that's cool. That's great. Okay, well, there we go. And let's go ahead and call it a night. And thank you again, guys. I certainly appreciate you being here with us. Have a good one.